Hey everybody, welcome to the Infinite Regression. This is the regression of infiniteness, and it's an infinite regression, and this is where you go to cry when you need a moment alone, and you just need some crying space, and it doesn't matter where, and guess what? Behind each one of these regressios, someone's crying. Anyway. Hey, it's Islandcraft with Rem Pemberton of the Clemson Pembertons. Let's play that theme song.
This has always been the theme song. This has always been the theme. This has always been the theme song. This has always been the theme.
All right, and there you have it. There was the cha that makes us all feel alive inside. Anyway, yeah, so let's get into some Islandcraft. Yes, this one, play you, my friend. The island crafting. I have a student, an estudiante, who has been complaining that I don't play my server anymore. Well, so I don't play my server anymore. So what? So suck your toe all the way to Mexico. While you're there, get a haircut and take the loose cuttings of that haircut. And you know what you can do with the loose cuttings? Put it in your underwear. That's right. Down the old pantaloons. This is where you can put the cuttings from your haircut. The clippings and the snippings. The snippings and the snapings. Okay. Ha 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 ha. New one should pop out any second now. There he is. Right on the schedule. Huzzah. And lo, he hath been killed. Okay. Oh, that's right. Need a pickaxe of iron. Oh, good. There's going to be more coal. Anyway, so had a rough day at the office, as 'twere. Ooh, I'm going to fill this in with this. It will make no sense. Anyway, yeah. Not a great day of teaching, to be certain. And yeah, just feels not great, which I don't like. I don't like not feeling great. And yeah, I tell you, you start to get to a point where you're like, hey, I can trust these freshmen, right? I can treat them like people. No, you can't. Stop treating your freshmen like people. They will eat you alive every time. Because they are freshmen. Never forget that they are freshmen. They are now and have always been freshmen. And so, you cannot forget that fact. Because it means that they are constantly and always potentially going to make you regret treating them kindly. Honest to God. So, here's the thing that's come up in my class before. Okay, even though the students don't know how to talk about it. They need to write another paper. We have a paper requirement school-wide where we have to write a certain number of papers per semester, per class. Anyway, so that's the whole thing, that I'm looking to make sure that I've fulfilled my requirement. and that it's an English class. So like students got to do their part. I got to do mine. Anyway, so I'm just looking to fulfill my requirement, and and I'm like, hey, why don't we talk about something that the students apparently have an interest in, which is colorism. I don't know how well you know about colorism, but it's the whole thing. Because the idea that, non-white peoples, right? You would think from a white person's perspective, like, oh, all non-white peoples are roughly equal in their own communities. Nope, not so. Is not so now, has not been so since the beginning of always. And it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, you go back to the days of conquistadors, and, when you have terms like mestizo and whatnot, which indicates, all right, here's something that not a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about, but I do, because I care about, where we come from, what we do, how we think about all of the things. And so, like, if you are Mexican, for example, here's an interesting thing to note. Depending on which region of Mexico your people come from, you may be lighter or darker skinned. Assuming, of course, we're talking, full-blooded Mexican. If there has been any subsequent, intermarriage in your family, which obviously is very common, it obviously can skew these ratios. So, like, this is not a hard and fast rule that I'm about to lay down. But, typically speaking, the conquistadors spent more time mixing blood with people of a more northern Mexican, people who were more from northern Mexico, which is why, interestingly enough, the deeper south you go into Mexico, the more of the original native blood is there, and so people tend to be shorter. People tend to be darker skinned and whatnot, because the lighter skin, in many cases, but obviously not in all cases, but as the Spanish conquistadors went through Mexico, bringing the Spanish language, which that's why Mexico has Spanish as its primary language, is because a long, long time ago, a bunch of white guys from Spain came through and, made friends, so to speak, with the locals. And made a whole lot of friends, quite frankly. And to the point where, there began to be these racial divides based on how white a person was, which those divides remain to this day. Coincidentally, it's a very stark contrast in the African American community, where colorism is a real dividing line, where, darker skinned African American women are less likely to get married. They are more likely to get in trouble in school. They are more likely to have criminal records and stuff. All these negative social markers. They are, and quite interestingly, the opposite. Like, the lighter skinned African American women tend to have an easier time finding employment and uh, tend to get paid more when they are employed. And yeah, it's this whole thing. And also, here's the one that I thought was really interesting. There was a study where they had people sit down with African American people from a variety of educational backgrounds, and across the board, people they would sit down with them, and then after they had sat down with a person, they'd allow a little bit of time to pass, and then they would make a judgment. They would hand them a many shades of brown card and be like, okay, where do you think the person that you just talked to falls skin color wise on this card? And because of the effects of colorism, people across the board tended to rate the more highly educated, intelligent sounding people that they talked to as having lighter skin than they actually did. And that was a trend that held true across the entire study. And that's just, it's kind of terrifying and sad because, like, I mean, we have a hard enough time dealing with racism in America, let alone colorism, let alone, like, these degradations within these gradations within the community itself. So we have a hard time dealing with some of these things. And so, like, this is what I came to talk with them about because, like, I have a student in that class who has on multiple occasions presented herself as having Hispanic origin despite being obviously very white looking. And this is a point of contention because, and we even talked in, like, the other day, people were getting very heated, and I was like, look, let me explain something to you. Let me tell you what I need you to understand. Like, this is like, please get this idea inside your head. This is before I decided the texts for our paper. And I was like, look, if you self-identify as Mexican, and you look Mexican, any outsider seeing your face would be like, yep, that person right there is Mexican. You are not able to pass as white. Now, granted, I have a student in that class who is Mexican, and she tells people all the time, oh, I could pass as white. So says you. But you forget just how, like, racist white people can be and how good at sniffing out. Like, I mean, come on. You go back to the one drop rule back in the olden times where if you had, and this is hilarious, so much as one drop of black blood in you, then you were no longer white. That was a real thing that people used to try to enforce. And so, like, how can you tell? How can you tell? Because the fun thing is that all of humanity, if you go back far enough, all of us can trace our roots back to Africa. Because, humanity evolved on the African savanna. Like, we know that from a scientific perspective. Like, we are all African if you trace it far back enough. And so, yeah, like, it becomes a bit of a dicey proposition because, I have a lot of Native American students, but you trace them back far enough and they are Asian, like, not to be weird about it, but I mean that we know that that's where Native Americans came from. They crossed the ice bridge about 20,000 years ago and came across from Asia, and we have it in the archaeological record. And so, it's very interesting. Uh, and I've had various students challenge me on that. I had one student whose family was adamant that, like, no, it goes the other way around. Like, the archaeologists have it wrong because, we lived in America first, and then our people went and crossed the land bridge into Asia, and that's where Asians come from. And it's like, well, that not necessarily supported by the archaeological record, but like you believe what you want to believe, I guess. Anywho's it's yeah, so I mean these things get very complicated. You trace them back far enough and we're all technically the same. Race is a game that we play. Race is a game that we have chosen. And we set the rules of it and we make it what we want to make it, which is ridiculous when you think about how racism works. I mean, obviously, if you are a young black man, you are significantly more likely to die a violent death than if you are a young white man. And that's not a happy fact that anyone feels comfortable about, that anybody's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, unless you're super racist, which don't, So, anyway, oh, there we go. Ha-ha. Oh, good, my chicken's making it out. I need to fence my freaking chickens in. I just need to. I have a spot selected. I'm just gonna build up my land mass for them. Have a place pre-selected where I want them to go. Oh, spiders! Yeah, boy. Skeletons, no, boy. That's a lot of spiders. Okay, good. Get yourselves apart from each other so I can kill... Wait. Oh, I need to throw these eggs so that I can have a place to catch string and stuff. Yeah, just what I need. More chickens. Nope, don't want the eye. Want the string. Oh, sorry, chicken. Oh, you didn't give me anything. That's bull honky. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, right, colorism. So, yeah, it's a weird idea that people would be, you know, that people would make so much of seemingly arbitrary differences, but then you remember the Houthis and the Hutus, sorry, Hutus and Tutsis in Rwanda, and you're like, oh, right. It can end very badly. Like, it can go insanely wrong. If you don't know about the Hutus and the Tutsis, basically the British, who did a number of terrible, terrible things during the colonial era, and that's why they are a country which has no Independence Day, but so many other nations celebrate their independence from Britain. Anyway, regardless, so in Rwanda, they literally, and I don't know why they did stuff like this. I mean, they built Iraq. Iraq was not a country. There was just an area where three different types of Muslims, all who did not like each other particularly well, lived. And then it was the British who were like, guess what? You have your own country now, and it's called Iraq. And, we've been dealing with the fallout of that decision ever since. Like, literally every, bullcrap Iraq thing that we've ever had to put up with has been as a result of the British being like, hey, Iraq, guess what? You're a country now. And them being like, the what now? But we don't even like those guys. It's kind of like what the French did with Indochina. They're like, hey, Cambodians, Laotians, and Vietnamese, like, you know how you have long-standing hatreds of each other? Well, guess what? You're all the same country now. And they were like, the frick we are. And France was like, yeah, you're called French Indochina. And they're like, why would you call us Indochina? We're our own thing. Like, we have been separate and, like, we've been a thing for a long freaking time. Please leave us the frick alone. And France was like, nope, Indochina, deal with it. And that's how you get a Vietnam War. Anyway, that, like, literally, quite actually and factually, that is how you get a Vietnam War. And why did America get involved in that? Because we're French. Durr. When have we not been French? Anyway, regardless. Yeah, I tell my students that because I've had students ask more than once, like, why did we get involved in the war in Vietnam? And I was like, you don't know? Because we're French, duh. They're like, we're not French. And I'm like, oh. We'll tell that to literally every American leader from the 1950s onward when we started getting involved in that area of the world. Such a dingus idea that we got ourselves wrapped up in. Anyway, regardless, so, ha-ta. There we go. Hooray. Oh, by the way, still have been abiding by all the rules that I set out. You know, all of my access to other islands has been via land bridges, or been via bridges, and as you can see, so keeping all the rules, playing the game as it was meant to be played. But anyway, yay. So yeah, the British, in addition to making Iraq the world's problem forever, they also, which coincidentally, here's a sad thing, is that, Iraq used to be this great, like, I'm teaching Gilgamesh right now, and one of the world's greatest libraries ever, like one of the greatest repositories of knowledge that we have ever had in the world, was in the ancient city of Nineveh, which you can feel on the back of your mind, like, oh my God, Nineveh, I know that. Where is that from? What the frick? Nineveh, why am I, like, getting this tingle of recognition? Okay, let me, once upon a time, you were probably a church-going person, and may still be, I don't know. Anyway, Nineveh is the city that the biblical prophet Jonah of Jonah and the whale fame was sent to when he was like, frick no, I ain't going there. They killed the last guy who went there. And yeah, that Nineveh where Jonah refused to go and so got on a boat and went in the opposite direction and then purportedly was swallowed by a whale and then came out the other side alive, which sounds like a bigger big fish story than anyone of any fisherman I've ever known, and I've known some fishermen to tell quite whopping fish stories. Anyway, but yeah, Jonah got swallowed by that whale. He was supposed to go to Nineveh. Now, we get the Epic of Gilgamesh, but also, tens of thousands of clay tablets containing, all sorts of information from one of the world's oldest libraries, which is right there in Nineveh. And we were so lucky to have it. So lucky to have it. So it's one of the things where, like, when the war in Iraq broke out, because, people are just like, war, that sounds like a good idea. And people who know things about things are like, oh, frick no, there's a ton of, like, freaking treasures of human history there. Like, what the frick, man? You can't just go busting up treasures of humanity. Like, that's not what we do. And yeah, meanwhile they'd be like, but we like to. The war, that's kind of our thing. We just disrupt everything and make it worse. Anyway, freaking war. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Anyway, so yeah. The British made Iraq a problem. That's what I was talking about. Then I was talking about Rwanda. Now, Rwanda, they did a dumber thing than they did anywhere else, which is they created two ethnic groups that did not exist before. The Hutus and the Tutsis. And they designated them as if they were doing some sort of freakish experiment, which they kind of were. They just pointed at people and they were like, you are light-skinned. And I forget whether the Hutus were, I think the Hutus were light-skinned and the Tutsis were dark-skinned, but do not quote me on that. I have been known to be wrong about the details. Like, I generally get the meta story correct, but I often get the details. Like, I get the overarching story right, but I get the details dead wrong. Anyway, so yeah, they just artificially divided people into Hutus and Tutsis. Now, were there Hutus and Tutsis, like people who were related to each other, who some of them turned out to be this a one and others turned out to be that a one? Yes, exactly. And they basically created a skin color based caste system within Rwanda. And then guess what? The people who were not favored within the skin color based caste system rose up against their quote unquote betters and just started freaking murdering everyone. And, and then it was genocide. And it's a terrible, terrible thing that happened that really had no basis in reality. And that's kind of how race operates in the world. Like, because here's the thing. We are more similar than we are different. Zoologists determine species. What is and is not a different species based on viability of offspring. So, if, for instance, a certain type of fly can mate with another one that looks slightly dissimilar, and what they produce is offspring that can have more offspring, well then, congratulations, you are the same species. Because if you can produce viable offspring, then you're not different species. That's just simple logic. And so, yeah, humans can all produce viable offspring with other humans. I mean, in a general sense. Obviously, there are some people who would not mesh well with other people in terms of like just getting along in a relationship, but also there are people who would not mesh well with other people in terms of like their children would inherit traits that would make them just wildly not adapted to long-term survival in a modern world. So yeah, obviously there are considerations to be made, but in theory, you could take, a tall, pale Scandinavian man and, short, dark-skinned Kalahari Bushman woman and have them make a baby, and that baby, in addition to being freaking adorable, would be able to go on and have babies of its own someday if it so chooses, right? So we understand this concept. Therefore, we are not different species. We are the same. We are all human beings. We are all doing the human thing. And we get that. We understand it is a whole human thing. And so that is why, to a certain extent, race is just a construct, because we are highlighting arbitrary differences such as, skin color, eye shape, nose shape, just, random facial features and whatnot, which are inhabited traits from parents, and like, yes, certain traits tend to be more pronounced in certain parts of the world. Obviously, in sub-Saharan Africa, people do tend to be not only dark-skinned, but incredibly dark-skinned. And that's how they be. And that's their own business of being that way. It's not a judgment on them one way or the other. That's just, they do tend to be darker skinned, even compared with a lot of other Africans. And so, whatever. It's fine. But we make these arbitrary distinctions of, you are different for this reason. We can really, really carry those differences out. Now, it gets to be a problem when it turns into colorism. And colorism it sounds a lot like racism, because it is a lot like racism, but a lot of times it is within the community. It is, like Hispanics being racist against other Hispanics. It is, black people being racist against other black people, Asians being racist against other Asians. And what is the determining factor? Well, almost always it is a matter of whiteness, which is insane, because here's something that I learned just from my time in Cambodia. People want what they don't have. They treasure the features that are not common among their people, whoever their people are. So Cambodians tend to be naturally hairless. So they don't grow a lot of body hair. And they tend to have very flat noses. So what are two things that Cambodians find extra attractive? Long, pointy noses and body hair. Yeah, that's right. I said body hair. And so, like, my arms aren't like extraordinarily hairy. I'd say they're about average for an American male, for an American white male. I mean, obviously that depends greatly on your racial background, but yeah, take an Anglo-Germanic Scandinavian mixture of white male and look at how hairy the average arm is. I'd be right in the freaking middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am basically the average when it comes to arm hair, but people used to pet my arms all the time. Why? Because that's a thing that they don't have. It's exotic, quote unquote. It's unique. And yeah, it's like Asian girls a lot of time get called exotic. Oh my God, you're so exotic. And it's like, yeah, except for like there's a bajillion Asian girls in the world. Like worldwide, there is a grip of Asian girls. Is like a ton. And if you go to Asia, guess who you're surrounded by? There's like Asian girls everywhere you turn because you're in Asia. So this concept of, whatever is unique, to wherever you are. I mean, white people in America, dime a dozen. And so, that's why you get so many white people claiming to be 1/16th Cherokee. I don't know why the frick it's always Cherokee, but it always is. And I don't know why it's always 1/16th. That means that, like, depending on what you're claiming, it might be that what you are saying is that your great-great-grandmother or great-great-grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee. Because, like, if you're saying that your great-grandmother or great-grandfather was half, then then extrapolated on down the line, you end up with 1/16th Cherokee. But, like, if you cannot show the family lineage on down through the line of, like, how do we get this Cherokee business, then I'm afraid, like, honestly, the obvious example that comes to mind is Elizabeth Warren. And, Donald Trump was such a jerk about that, but he was also right in the sense that, like, why are you claiming something that you don't look like? But that's also a difficult topic because not everybody looks like the heritage that they have. Not everybody is going to look like whatever idea you have of what a person of X, Y, or Z ethnicity is supposed to look like. And so it becomes a dicey proposition. And so this is what I wanted to do with my freshmen, is I'm like, hey, they've talked about these issues. Obviously, it's on their minds. I want to give them the vocabulary to talk about it because, extreme distillation of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is told in a, like, not very good or thorough way, is the idea that we can't talk about things until we have the language to describe it. Right? This is basic freaking idea right there. And so once we have the language to describe an idea, we can talk about that idea. It's just simple stuff. So you teach people about colorism so that they can talk about colorism with a vocabulary that is understood. That when you talk to other people about this concept, this is the same term that they are using because this is the understood acceptable term for this concept. So, hooray, huzzah, there it is. Colorism, we get it. Anyway, so this is my plan going into my freshman class. And, yeah, it did not go well. So first of all, I started with a video, which I have done before, but for something different. There's a really good YouTube channel called Cut, and they make videos that make you think about various things in society. They have, I really like the ones where it's like, guess what language I speak, guess what my accent is, and the one that I showed was guess which of these people are white. And then, in walks what appears to be 12 freaking white people. But the funny thing about these white people is that only 2 of them self-identify as white. Which is a funny thing because, they all look like varying degrees of whiteness. And, all except for a couple of them, the Moroccan guy and the Puerto Rican Trinidadian woman could get away with claiming whiteness and could basically more or less get away with it. And so it's a fascinating idea. And so I was, pausing the video and having students guess, like, okay, what do you think this guy is? What do you think that girl is? And at first they were like semi-interested, and then they just were like, meh. And like the crap thing about it is that they don't reveal what everybody is until the end of the video. And so like I wasn't able to be like, okay, well, let's, see. And we were like 4 people from the end. So not that many people left. And I was running through it real quick, just doing a hands up, for like, okay, hands up. How many of you think this person identifies as white? How many of you think this person identifies as non-white? Those of you who say non-white, make a guess, And that's basically how we were approaching it. And so it makes it an interesting thing when you have the students put some skin in the game. And like I said, I've done this video before. It can be pretty powerful in, dealing with the concept of how do we identify other people, because like I said, almost all of the people in that room could pass for white. And so that is the concept that we wanted to talk about, because I've had, that like they've had some pretty heated discussions, and I've even pointed out, I'm like, I've told them, I'm like, hey, this student in class who claims to be white or claims to be Hispanic, those of you who anyone looking at you would say, yeah, you are probably Mexican, those of you who are of that type of strong visual ethnic identity, like, you can't pass as anything else. And sometimes it's useful to pass as something else. Like one of the, there was that woman who was she was involved in her local NAACP and whatnot, and as it turned out, she was a white woman, and people who knew her in high school were like, no, she's not even a little bit black, and neither of her parents, I've met her parents, and neither of her parents are black. How is she in the NAACP? And yeah, it's a good question. And one of the things that the African American community took the most umbrage with was the fact that this woman, and I wish I could remember her name, but meh, I'm terrible at remembering names. The thing that they took the most exception with was not the fact that, like, you would think that they would take the most exception to the fact that she was claiming to be black when she was not black. But what people took exception to the most was the fact that she was using her whiteness when it benefited her, and then tucking it away when she wanted to present as black, which a lot of black people cannot do that. They are black. And so that means that the world interacts with them as black, and all of the things that come along with blackness, all of the negative racial stereotypes, all of the difficulties, that black people endure in our society, all of those things, they are the recipients of because they cannot switch back and forth. They can't just pass for something other than what they are. And so I was explaining this to my students one day, and they were kind of nodding along and like, yeah, that seems pretty fair, pretty accurate as to why we don't like this other student who seems to be appropriating our culture. And I was like, yeah, it's 100% understandable. Like, and telling telling the student, like I have met your mother, and your mother is 100% Hispanic. Like, so, yeah, you don't need to convince me that you can claim what you are claiming, but these people have not seen that. All they have ever seen is that you are the whitest person in the room, and I'm in the room, and I'm pretty darn white, So, anyway, that was the whole thing. So I thought it would make a good, because we have to write a paper, I was like, let's write a paper on colorism, because I was having a really good discussion with one of my students who is half Native American and half white. And it's funny because she gets called all sorts of things which do not reflect her heritage at all. For instance, she's like, yeah, she's telling me just today, she's like, yeah, it's that time of year where people start to call me Jewish because her complexion changes based on the amount of sun that she's getting. And so at different times of the year, people will guess differently at her, racial background based on what her skin tone is. And she self-identifies as Native American. I've met her mother. Her mother is white. Her mother is a very delightful person who also understands. And I've taught both of her siblings as well. I've taught everybody in that family. And so, like, I know that the sister just older than her looks slightly more Native. And the oldest sister looks 100% Native, does not look partially white at all. And, these are all children of the same exact parents. They're not half siblings or anything. They are full siblings. And so, it's a complicated, interesting issue. And it was on my mind, and I was like, let's teach this. Well, sometimes as a teacher, you're like, yeah, I'm going to pick something that the kids are going to be interested in. It's something that they've already shown an interest in. We're going to make this a thing. And, yeah, they just weren't having it today. The education part. Oh, great. Hit Q instead of W. Anyway, they just didn't want to be educated today. They didn't want to be taught anything. They didn't want anybody to attempt to teach them anything. And they were adamant about this. And I was like, yeah, but you know that I'm a teacher and I get paid for teaching, and it's a work day, so I'm going to do that teaching I get paid for. And then they proceeded to be the absolute worst. The absolute freaking worst. Just god awful. And I was already having a very rough day for reasons that, you know, I'll probably be able to laugh about someday. Today is not that day. Today we are not laughing about this. We are not laughing about it at all because of how craptacular it was. You know, I will tell you a story about a different craptacular day, because it's funny and I can laugh about it now. This one I can't laugh about yet, because it is still raw. It is still hitting me wrong, and not just, you know, how I started to have a bad mood, but like, you know, where the day went from there. So here's a story about Disneyland and why it is the crappiest place on earth, and I hate it and I don't want to go back. Anyway, so I've always had kind of a, like, you know, I grew up with Disney movies and I really love them, and that much is true. And like, I used to always love it when I was a kid. Like, we never had cable, and you know, we just had the terrestrial channels, and every now and again Disney Channel would do this thing called Sneak a Peek Week, where they would broadcast terrestrially the Disney Channel so that any old schmo could pick up the Disney Channel. And you know, your neighbors would call you and be like, "Oh my God, Sneak a Peek Week is on," and you would tune in to the channel that on other days of the year was just static. And my God, there was the Disney Channel, you know, and all of these things that you normally didn't get to see were there, you know. And yeah, so that I had my time with Disney. But Disney is now this like large, ridiculous monopoly that needs to be broken up. And, you know, I don't have the same feelings about it that I used to have. I don't, because of where the corporation has gone. And like, you know, I'll tell you, when I got to Disneyland and this underpaid, overweight woman in a "May the Force be with you" shirt with, you know, like a Darth Vader mask with Mickey Mouse ears. And by the way, like, let's get one thing straight. Mickey Mouse is the freaking worst. Like, he's terrible. I hate Mickey Mouse. Like, he's absolutely awful. No good Mickey Mouse cartoons. Sorry. There are no, like, the old Disney shorts, the, like, Merry Melodies ones that used to, or Silly Symphonies, or whatever they were called, that used to play as shorts before feature films back in the day. If it was a Mickey one, trash. If it was a Donald, oh, that'd probably be freaking hilarious. If it was Goofy, oh, that's gonna be freaking hilarious, because, you know, Goofy was like, you know, only Buster Keaton was a better physical actor than Goofy, was a better physical comedian than Goofy. Anyway, so, yeah, like I have my issues with Disney. I don't want to go into it, but like I got roped into chaperoning the Disneyland trip for the senior class. Now, before you go assuming that I didn't enjoy my trip because I had to sit on a bus with a bunch of screaming kids, haha, you don't know what kids are like anymore. They don't scream, they don't even talk to each other. It was the quietest bus ride that I have ever been on. Ever. Everybody was on their phone. Nobody talked to each other. Nobody cracked a smile. Nobody talked. Nobody laughed. It was pathetic and sad, is how I would describe it. Pathetic and sad. Especially compared with the, like, raucous, amazing bus trips that I had when I was in high school. Because when I was in high school, bus trips were the bomb. Like, you couldn't wait for a good bus trip. Bus trips were amazing. Like, you know, I can't even tell you how many people I know had their first kiss on a high school bus trip. Like, that was a whole thing. There was a whole cottage industry of helping people lose their VL card. You know, the Virgin Lips Club. Oh, you weren't in the Virgin Lips Club because you weren't a complete loser in high school? Okay. I see how it is. I see what you're doing. I see how you're shaming those of us who were complete and total losers in high school. Okay. This slight shall not be forgotten. Anyway. So yeah, the ride over was lame and terrible. We left, you know, early in the day, but not like crazy early. Not like so early that people would not have already been up for school and whatnot, you know. So there's no reason why people were not interacting and living life. So anyway, do I want to do? Wait, can I do? We'll find out. There's just too many freaking chickens. I need to find out where all of my fence posts are and start building fence and just put all the chickens in. Anywho's, it's oh, what was I gonna do? This? Yeah, polished deep with slate slab, so I can make my floors look good. Oh, and I can probably wait. Go back down in my mind and see what I got down here. Anywho, so yeah, we get on this bus trip, and like I have a fairly insubstantial breakfast. Normally I'm drinking a whole pot of tea and yeah, enjoying myself a nice pot of tea, and letting that be a thing that happens in a world. Well, anyway, for whatever reason, things were not as planned there at the start of day, and my stomach was like, hey, we're going to need to alleviate some pressure pretty soon. So you're going to want to make sure that you are in a place where you can alleviate some pressure, if you know what I mean. And I was like, oh, I know what you mean. Like at a certain point in your life, like, oh my God, anyway. At a certain point in your life, like you've definitely not hit the eject button in time. You've definitely had your chute open early, so to speak. Anyway, so yeah, like you know not to mess around. You know that it's like serious business as to whether or not you take care of business when business is there to be taken care of. Now, the unfortunate thing is when you are not the person in charge of transportation. Oh, but the thing is past the halfway point. And it's getting all dark outside and whatnot. It's all darkety darks. Anyway. There we go. Anywho's, it's... Anybody coming down the chute? Nope. Okay. So... Yeah, like... I felt the need to have my morning relief. Because normally, like when you're a teacher, you got to get yourself on a regimen. That much is for sure. Like you absolutely. Oh, I need to. Speaking of absolutely, you absolutely have to set down. Like this is my morning regimen, and this is when me taking care of the sit down type toilet business. The Doocy, the number 2, named in honor of our terrible, terrible governor that we have here in Arizona. Oh yeah, he's terrible. And his name is Doocy. Lives up to his name in every possible way. Anyway, so where there we go. That'll do. That'll do nicely. Anyway, so, yeah, when you're a teacher, you get on a pretty strict schedule of when you take care of business. Now, like, we had to show up early, to do a whole, like, contraband check. Which they literally went through everyone's bag to make sure nobody was, like, trying to sneak drugs and or alcohol into Disneyland, because Disneyland frowns on that, as you may know. Anyway, so okay. And wait, did I not finish the... Oh, no, there's a jagged edge there, and I just left the natural edge. Anyway. Okay, I always misjudge this. Misjudge that for sure. Okay, how many do I need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need 6 more fancy posts. And some gates. Anyway, because we gotta get a handle on this friggin' egg situation, if nothing else. This chicken situation is redonkulous. Oh, and I'm gonna need some more sticks and whatnot. Let me build a pickaxe while I'm here. Anyway. Or an axe. Oh, can I? Well, I can build a wooden one. No, I've got it. I didn't remember that I had oak and timbers, but apparently I did. Okay. That's the gate, and I need 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Okay, let me Roll reversal. Bop, 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 bop. Let's make 9 just because I know I don't need that many. Of course I don't need that many because I'm taking out a bunch for the... Anyway. Dingus. Come on. Think it through. Anyway. So, yeah. Take this bus trip. And yes, teachers do be on a tight regimen when it comes to those things because when it comes to bowel type evacuations, because you absolutely have to, because you do not get to plan your schedule out. Your schedule is planned. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've got a class at this time and at this time and at this time, and if you're not ready to go for class, if you're not ready for people to walk in and immediately have stuff to do the minute they set foot into your classroom, then you are not doing your job, plain and simple. Like, that's the expectation. And so, anyway, so yeah, I have my daily regimen, and it can be interrupted by various things. Obviously, weekends and stuff, I'm not on the exact same regimen, but like the body gets used to what it gets used to. And for whatever reason, my stomach was not feeling amazing. I was not feeling good in the stomachal regions of my gut, if you know what I mean. And so I was feeling like, oh boy, this is gonna be like, we're gonna be cutting it close. Like, we're getting close to Disneyland, and I know that we're gonna have to go through the whole thing of like parking the bus and getting everybody checked in, and it is a whole thing. And so I knew it was gonna have to be an issue, but I was like, well, we are prepared for it to be an issue. Like, let's just, sit tight, sweat it out, potentially quite literally, and we'll be fine. We will make do one way or to other. Well, as luck would have it, we get off the bus, and there's a whole row of portatype Johns. Now, the other teacher, the other chaperone, who's the basketball coach, had already gotten off the bus. Like, because he also was like, yeah, I gotta, take my morning constitutional, governor. And he, got off the bus and was like, okay, man's got to do what a man's got to number 2, and went and used the baño, went and used them facilities as 'twere, and and that's when I was like, okay, I can make this happen, because like all of the check-in was like basically automated, and I didn't need to be there for any part of it. Like, I mainly just needed to be there for the bus ride. I didn't even need to be there for a lot of it. And so, and then once the kids are inside the park, they are kind of on their own, doing their own thing. And so, like, I didn't need, I didn't need to, hold their hands through the check-in. It was very well laid out. Everybody knew what check-in was. Everybody knew where they needed to be. So I was like, yes, I'm going to go hit these porta-johns. Not an ideal situation, not my preferred, place to be, doing my morning constitutional, governor. But, a place that had to, like you got to do sometimes. you're in a filthy gas station and you're like, well, what do I love more? The cleanliness of the backs of my thighs, or my clean pants remaining clean and unsoiled, very literally. So, yeah, it's one of them situations, and I very clearly, the choice was made for me. So, so yeah, I went ahead and I did what a man had to do. I went into the I went into the porta-john and sat down and proceeded to. Now I have a thing, and you all might have a similar thing, because I assume it's a very common thing, is that I don't like staring into the hole of a porta potty. I don't. Because it's disgusting because of what's in there. And so I didn't want to look inside the hole of this porta potty, but as fate would have it, I probably should have. I really, really probably should have, because I'm just going to go to sleep and then I'll plan the rest in the morning. So why should I have looked inside the hole of this porta potty? Well, became very apparent very quickly when other people's nastiness, and probably a fair bit of my own, which I needn't remind you, but let's go ahead and remind you, was in a liquid state at this time. Not happy about it. I wasn't happy about it then. I'm not happy about it now. Anyway, that I'm just telling you what it was. It was in a liquid state. And so, yes, I had, a liquid state of affairs. And it was not an ideal state of affairs. And oh my God, this chicken army is relentless. Anyway, so yeah, a liquid state of affairs. Let me just get these chickens in the pan before I finish this, because I feel like these chickens are going to drive me freaking nuts. Okay, if you do not come with, I will slaughter you. Like, I hate to make it that stark, but, like, that is the reality of the situation. If you do not come with, you are getting slaughtered. Come on in, dingus. Yeah, saving you from the slaughter. Literally saving you from slaughter. Quite literally saving you from slaughter. Okay. First of all, let's get you all making babies, because that's clearly what you want to do. Okay, and I'm out. I'm out, and I'm out. Okay. Let's indiscriminately slaughter all of the chickens who are not on the inside. Yeah, you see that? That's why you get on the inside, dingus. Anyway. Wow, they are not giving me feathers. Oh no, I got 4 feathers. Anyway. So my island will be much more organized and satisfying now that chickens will be under control, because these chickens have been running roughshod over this whole place. You hear me, chicken? I see you running roughshod. I see you running roughshod. Anyway, I'm gonna pick up all these eggs. Should probably save these, but you know. Actually, I think I will save these because, you know, if I ever get cows, maybe I could start making cakes and whatnot. And also, there are probably other things you can make with eggs. I know there are cookies to be made. I assume those take eggs. Anyway, let me just kill the last remaining chickens. Oh, nice. Level up, chicken. Thank you for the leveling up. So, yeah, now we have penned in chickens. How you doing, chickens? You're friggin' everywhere as per usual. Yeah, that's nice, chickens. Okay. So, let me finish my dingus story about terrible things that happen at Disneyland. Now, this is not why I hate Disneyland, by the way. It doesn't help. I was once broke down at the gates of Disneyland at 2 in the morning, and that definitely did not help. So, you know, I have many reasons for not being the world's biggest Disney fan. Anyway, and people always get upset. They're like, dude, but you have to like Disney. Calm down. Like, look, let me just explain a simple fact. If you like something and somebody else doesn't, is not a personal attack. Calm the freak down. Like, people can like other things than you like. It's perfectly normal. It won't be the first time that this has happened. It won't be the last. People like other things. It's okay. We're all adults here. We can get along. It's fine. Oh, that's right. I was going to do floors and whatnot. Okay. So, yeah. Oh, I've got shovels. I can dig this up. Anywho's it's so I'm in the Porta-John and I should have checked the levels, because guess what? This thing was topped off. Like, we're talking, okay, you probably heard of a meniscus, like, in someone's knee. Meniscus is also the name for that concept of, you know how you can overfill a cup of water to the point where there's water above the edge of the glass? And the reason you can is because of the natural tension of water. And so if you put into the water, you know, different types of, there are, like the, what's it called? Jet dry, you know, is a substance which is literally made to break the surface tension of water. That's why it works so well in your dishwasher, is because it breaks the surface tension of the water so that you don't get that whole meniscus thing forming, and you get more water broken up over the surface. Anyway, and obviously you can see why in a dishwashing situation you would need such a thing. Now this porta potty had been filled to the meniscus point, and it was one of those things where, like, once I got in there was, like, my body was like, oh, this is happening here, and this is happening now. And like, if you don't get your pants down fast enough, we are letting go in 3, 2. You know, it is one of those where, like, where your hands are fumbling and you're sweating and you can't go fast enough. One of those. Just a good time all around. Anyway, so yeah, Disneyland. Porta potty right outside Disneyland at the receiving gate for high school groups. Disneyland. This is where we are. This is what is happening. So I start to release the foulness that is within me, and then immediately everything that is inside the porta-john is like, we don't like being on the inside. We would rather prefer to be on the outside. Now, what else is on the outside? My pants. Like, you know, my pants, which are around my anklesies. You know, I've never figured out how people, like, keep their pants high and tight when they're doing their number twosie type business. I got to keep them low and slow. That is the tempo, which, by the way, might be the big part of the reason why I do not prefer public bathrooms. That's why I like the home court advantage so much, is because in the home court advantage, like, oh, you want to, you know, go all the way to the flow? Yeah, that's fine. You do what you do because, like, it's okay. You're in your own house. Like, it hardly matters. So, yeah. Anyway. Ta-da. Did it. Anyway, so yeah, it starts overflowing and, like, it gets onto my pants. And this is a porta potty. There is no sink. Oh, sorry, chickens, you're outside. You're outside the pen. By definition, you are outside the pen and therefore must be sacrificed. Oh no. Oh no, I hate to do this to you, but I do have a no tolerance policy. Get back here. I cannot tolerate you. And you're Oh, that's right. There's a random guy down here somewhere. This is in the mine. Anyway. Okay. So, yeah. Yep. That's a whole thing. My goodness, people. So, yeah. If you want to put it the wrong way, but have it sound reasonably reasonable, you would say, oh, he crapped his pants at Disneyland. That's not technically true. Crap got onto my pants at Disneyland. Oh, that's definitely true. That is part of the story. Yes, you are correct about that part. That is 100% accurate, my friend. Crap did, in fact, get onto my pants at Disneyland. Did I put it there? Well, let's ask Archimedes. Why are we asking Archimedes? Because Archimedes was the one who figured out water displacement, the water displacement mass calculation that an object dropped in water will displace an amount of water equal to its mass. That was Archimedes, and then he took off because he noticed it when he was getting into the bathtub. So he's buck naked in his bathtub, and he sits down in the bathtub and he sees the water level rise, and he immediately recognizes the scientific principle at work, and he's like, oh my God, we can now accurately measure for mass. And because even he understood back then that there's a difference between weight and mass. I mean, obviously, who doesn't know that? Anyway, so, yeah, I pooped a poop inside an already, like, quite literally full to the brim, like, full porta potty right outside Disneyland. It was full. And then my poop displaced an amount of nasty, filthy liquid that is so disgusting I'd rather not think about it right now. It displaced an equal amount of liquid onto whatever just happened to be on the floor. You know, my shoes, my pants, etc. You know, things that I kind of care about. And so, yeah, this is all a problem. And I'm just feeling like, this is the worst. I hate this so much. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this Disneyland trip. This is not going well. And, yeah, I called the missus from the bathroom because she was already like, because she would have gladly gone on this Disneyland trip. She likes Disneyland. She's one of you, like, people who is like, but Disneyland is fun and stuff, normal. And I am just a curmudgeonly grump. And so I have no sentiment like that toward Disneyland whatsoever. I did not go there when I was a child, so I have no happy memories of Disneyland as a child to fall back on. Nothing of the sort. Like, my earliest memory of Disneyland is that when I was in college, we went on a road trip to California. We just happened to find a hotel deal that was really close to Disneyland. This is one of these hotels that, like, it's not part of Disneyland, but they know that most of their people staying there are staying there because Disneyland is, like, right around the corner. Anyway, our car broke down at the gates of Disneyland at 2 a.m. And then we had to push that freaking car. We like pushed it, like, somehow we found a spot that was not metered and was not, like, privately owned or anything. Like, I don't know how we pulled that off. I guarantee you we would not be able to do that today. Guarantee you that, like, whatever place we parked in is now the heartless, soulless shell that used to be Star Wars, which is now owned by the Disney Corporation. And, some overweight, overworked woman in a, May the Force be with you shirt when I got to Disneyland was like, welcome, Jedi. May the Force be with you. And I was like, hey, let's both kill ourselves. We clearly want to do it. Like, that's what I wanted to tell this woman. Like, hey, you are a 40-something-year-old performing emotion labor, but you're not at a strip club. Like, why are you still alive? I don't have a good reason for me. You got a good reason for you? Anyway, so yeah. So I called my wife and she's like, I hereby officially authorize the purchase of Disney type sweatpants. emergency Disney sweatpants, ready, get, set, go. Because, you know, like, I don't know if you've ever tried to purchase a single clothing item at Disneyland. It is overpriced. First of all, like, look, I know what the Chinese kids get paid to make it. Just kidding. It's not Chinese kids. Those kids are not in China. They're in Southeast Asia. The Chinese will contract with Disney to be like, oh, we'll make your stuff. And then they subcontract it out to Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Oh, French Indochina, you mean? No, I don't. And I'll thank you for not saying that. Anyway, and so will all the people from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam who historically have not liked each other for longer than America has been a country. Like thousands of years longer than America has been a country, they have not liked each other. So, you know, get a handle on it. Anyway, so yeah, like I had to, like, here's what I had to do. Luckily the thing was well stocked with toilet paper. I had to, like, take all the toilet paper I could get, use it for the express purpose of wiping out other people's crap from my pants. Then there was outside, there was a hand washing station, but it's one of these, like, it's a plastic thing made out of the same plastic as the porta potty, where you have to foot stomp on the thing and it squeezes a little tube that, like, shoots out water at not very decent pressures. Had to use that hand washing station to wash my hands, and then you know, just to get myself reasonable enough to get in there. And then I was like, you know, taking some of the toilet paper from the bathroom, getting that wet, and then using that to clean my shoes, and then walking on the grass very thoroughly, like rubbing the sides of my shoes on the grass because they were covered with other people's filth and muck and whatnot. Right? Not just mine. I mean, probably also mine, because mine was last in, first out, probably. But, like, anyway, yeah, so the, that situation was terrible. And then I go through the line and the security line, and they check my backpack and everything. And luckily there was a whole mass of people. So even if they were like, hey, who smells like they got other people's poop, and possibly some of them, like definitely some of their own, but also probably somebody else's poop all over them, there was no way for people to tell. Anyway, so like, I went inside the first shop I could find. I spent $60 freaking dollars that I could have spent on literally anything else, to buy the sweatpants that I could find with the least amount of branding on them. I no longer have them. I cannot remember what they were. You know, just whatever they had that was like Disney California Adventure or something, you know, like something low key. Anyway, and so yeah, I got me a pair of those, but then I had to go change into them, and so I went into the bathroom, right? So I go into the bathroom, and I empty the contents of my pants. I take them off, and I hang them on the back of the thing, you know, the hook on the back of the stall door. Oh, by the way, I go inside the handicap stall because, like, anytime you need to change, and I was like, I need to check myself over thoroughly for other people's poop particles. This is not going well. And so my wife is like, she's heartbroken because, she knows that I didn't want to go on this trip in the first place. And now here I am at Disneyland with my own and other people's poop on me. And so, yeah, just not a good situation any way you slice it. And so here we are, just having a bad time at Disneyland, which is the only thing I've ever had at Disneyland. So don't friggin' judge me because I don't enjoy Disneyland more. Like, judge Disneyland for not being able to provide me with the kind of experience that it so clearly provides you. Anyway, so, yeah. So I go into the handicapped stall, and trust me, I'm not the guy who is always like, there are guys who are like, if the handicapped stall is there, I take it. I will, like, sometimes there's a, slightly bigger than regular one next to the handicapped stall, and I'll take that one if I can. But this was a job where I was going to be checking myself over thoroughly, and I was also going to be changing clothing. And so this was no time for mucking about. This was no time for, like, half measures. We needed the space. And so yeah, it was not good. So I get in there, I get into the baño, and I'm checking myself over, and yes, indeed, I am finding other people's fecal matter in places. Oh, I also purchased some baby wipes. Thank goodness for the advent of baby wipes. That is a very handy thing. Thank you to the creator of baby wipes, whoever you are. You've done a wonderful thing with your life. Thank you. Like, for real, thank you. Anyway, so yeah, I've got my baby wipes, so I'm, what are baby wipes made for? They are literally made for wiping up poo. So, like, we're in good. This is best possible scenario aside from, like, not going to Disneyland in the first place. The best thing that I could possibly hope for at this time. So we're hoping for a good turnout that I can at least situate myself in such a way that I can, not have to worry about, smelling like poop and feeling like poop and just generally carrying other people's poop around with me all day. So yeah, we're giving ourselves a very careful once over. I am, like, videotaping up and down my own back, using my phone, which I was constantly baby wiping, by the way, because I'm like, oh, other people's poo is probably on my phone now, which I guarantee it was. Humans are disgusting when it comes down to it. Our poop gets everywhere. And if you don't think so, watch the Mythbusters on, poop getting everywhere. On whether or not toothbrushes stay cleaner if you leave them outside the bathroom, except for when you're using them. Anyway, so, because guess what? If the toothbrushes are anywhere near a human, they are going to have fecal coliform bacteria on them, because humans have the poo-poo bacteria all over them all the time. Because that's how we roll. That is the way we roll. That is the way we roll. Wait, crap. I thought I had blocks, not torches. Anyway, but I didn't change it over, so why would I think that? Anyway, so I'm in the handicap stall. I'm giving myself the once over. Things are looking like they might be okay. I'm gonna have to wear some ridiculous Disneyland $60 freaking sweatpants. Like, you have to understand this about me. I do not care about clothes. Like, clothes are the most boring, ridiculous, stupid thing to spend money on that I can even imagine. Clothes? You're going to spend money on clothes? No, money is for video games and audio equipment. Like, that's what money is for. You come at me with clothes? Are you freaking insane? If it cannot be purchased at a Goodwill clothing wise, then it is unnecessary. So that is factual. Feel free to check my math there. Anyway, so yeah. I don't spend $60 on a pair of anything. Like, I could see myself spending $60 on a pair of nice Doc Martens someday, but that's just because I'm basically a lesbian. It has been established. One of my best friends from high school dubbed me an honorary lesbian when we adopted our fourth cat. So, take it with a grain of salt. I'm just leaving that so I know where it is in case I decide to do spider version of this. Anyway, so yes. Let's go see how much jobby flesh we've accumulated. Anyway, so yeah, I've had a legitimately terrible time at Disneyland. Oh, it gets worse. Sorry, I forgot to finish this story with the it gets worse part. So I'm doing my once over. I'm putting on my expensive freaking sweatpants, and I'm starting to breathe a sigh of relief as I'm giving myself, as they call it, a whore's bath. Just wetting everything down and being like, it's clean now, right? I used every last one of those baby wipes. You better believe it. Like 150 wipes, absolutely to the bottom of that of that container, all the way down, and put the empties inside the bag that I bought the sweatpants in. 1, 2, 3, yeah, that's right. Anyway, so while I am finishing my business of checking myself over and getting myself situated and whatnot, and then I take my old pants, my poopy pants, I take my poopy underwear, because don't think they escaped this nightmare. They were down there with my pants. Anyway, take all of these things, throw them in the bag that the sweatpants came in there with the the poopy butt wipes and whatnot, and take this whole mess, throw it in there together, all of these things that I'm going to abandon in this bathroom forever and never look back. Right? This is the plan. And so I get my bindle of nastiness together, and I'm ready for the abandonment, and that is when I see two unmistakable wheelchair wheels approach the stall, and from their vantage, they can clearly see that there are no wheelchair wheels on the inside of the stall. They can tell that whoever is on the inside of there is probably able-bodied, which is something that they probably have to deal with all the time, which is why I try to be aware and I try to be cognizant and a good citizen and not use the handicapped stall, unless, of course, I'm in a situation like, if I'm in a workplace and I know everybody in the office and I know for a fact that there are no handicapped people, but according to ADA, we have to have a handicap stall because ADA is a good thing. It is a good thing. Accessibility. Give people the ability to go where they need to go. Like, you shouldn't have to wait for a handicapped person to begin employment at your place of employment before you start doing things like building handicap stalls and ramps and things like that. Like, just make it accessible, because you never know if somebody in a wheelchair is going to stop by. Or the many times that it's come in handy at our school, because, like, there was a time where I swear to God, you know those little knee carts that, like, if you injure your leg in a really bad way, and they're like, we need you to not be doing anything on this, and so we're going to give you this little cart that you're going to put your knee up on this cart because you're not allowed to put your foot down. And it's a little push cart thing. You push it with your free leg, and you just, hobble around on your knee. Like, oh, how glad for all the ramps at our school were those people when we had like 4 teachers with like, varying degrees of leg problems that all required those little carts. I swear to God, we had 4 different teachers on those at one time. And at that time, we also had a teacher in a motorized mobility cart. So, yeah, people were happy to have the access. I fully understand ADA and the need for it and the reason why it's a good idea, which is why I try not to be the douchebag who uses up the handicapped stall when I'm clearly not handicapped and I'm not in a situation where I cannot guarantee, that there's not going to be a handicapped person who needs to come use the stall. You know what I'm saying? I just try to be a good citizen. Well, anyway, today was not my day, because right outside, man in a wheelchair, and I was on the phone. Well, I was texting back and forth with my wife, and I sent her a picture of wheelchair wheels outside the stall. And I'm like, so this is happening? And she's like, are you in the handicap stall? I was like, yep, that is exactly what is going on right now. And so, yeah, yep. Is a good time. Good times were had at Disneyland. So I come outside with a bag full of clothing and baby wipes that are covered in mine and other people's most unspeakable bodily nastiness. And it's all bagged up in a, hobo's nightmare. And, just the worst bindle anybody's ever seen. And, I've got this whole ridiculosity all laid out and ready to roll. And, and then this guy who has been waiting patiently, I might add, outside the handicap stall, who, like, when you're handicapped, and I've known this because I had a friend in college who was wheelchair bound, you got to plan for this stuff. Like, you can't have a sneak attack if you're, someone in a wheelchair. You got to know your body and know the movements thereof. And so, like, you've definitely, like, got to plan ahead, because getting inside the bathroom and getting inside the stall, your job is not done, friend. You got to park, secure the perimeter, and then you have to perform a semi-aerial maneuver just to get your butt planted on on the toilet seat. Is not, I mean, obviously easy enough for them. Any one of us trying to do it, we would fail miserably. If you were not trained in the ways, if you were not, trained in the use of the handicrapper, which trademark. I'm trademarking that handicrapper. That's mine. Just kidding. It can't possibly be mine. Like, someone has definitely thought of handicrapper before me. Anyway, but wait, isn't that how golden apples work? Oh, that's how golden apples work. stockpile these golden apples. It's like the only thing gold is good for. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I had to endure the most bitter, disappointed, like, how dare you of a look from the handicapped gentleman who was waiting patiently for his turn in a stall which was made for him. We were the only two people in this bathroom, by the way. So it was a situation where he's looking around and he's like, there are all of these stalls. And you, like, of all the stalls in all the world, you got to come into mine. And, it was a whole thing. And so, yeah, not feeling great for so many reasons. And, yeah. And then, I did what anybody in my situation would do. I went into Disneyland and proceeded to go on none of the rides because it all looked pretty terrible in comparison with a real theme park like Six Flags. Like literally any Six Flags location has better rides and has way better wait times than Disneyland has. Guarantee it, cash money, better use of your money would be to go to any Six Flags rather than go to Disneyland. This is factually accurate. I don't give a crap how you feel about it. That is factually accurate. Anyway, so I proceeded to not go on any of the rides, but instead read Farewell to Arms in its entirety, start to finish, the entire book, and then played a little Pokemon Go. Took a nap in the they had like a Chaperones Lounge, which I was told, like they told me when we got in there, I was like, do you guys have any special foods or anything? And they had like the most meager, just sad little layout that you've ever seen. And this is freaking Disneyland. They got all kinds of food at Disneyland. Like, come on. You're going to tell me that this is the best you could do for chaperones who are like, tired and grumpy, dealing with kids all day. And like, you're trying to make us feel halfway special. We had to have a special wristband and everything to even get in to the chaperone area. And then you're going to put us up like this? Really? And then they told us, because I was like, hey, what are the amenities? And they're like, oh, we used to have a wine bar. And I'm like, what do you mean used to? Like, let's turn that into a still do, please. Like, let's make that a, hey, this chaperone is going to, this chaperone's going to read Hemingway and drink like Hemingway. How about that? Like, just we're gonna read Hemingway and drink until our liver looks like Hemingway's. Anyway, regardless, ladies and gentlemen, it was a terrible trip to Disneyland and I freaking hated it. But it wasn't my first terrible time at Disneyland. That was the time I was broke down at the gates of Disneyland at 2 a.m. And yeah, Disneyland has no special place in my heart. I'm sorry that that's the way I feel. But guess what? More Disneyland for you. You know how you go to Disneyland? You're like, oh, frick, I wish there were fewer people here. Hey, guess who's not there? Me. You're welcome. I'm not there. You're freaking welcome. So, anyway, ladies and gents. So today, with my freshmen, I thought I had a great idea. I thought we were going to talk about colorism and, get into ideas about that and show them a video and whatnot. And what it ended up with was me yelling, me chucking all of the readings for the day at a student who wouldn't shut the freak up and stop being a turd to me. Like, she was being so disrespectful and so ridiculous. And like, there are only 12 people in that class, so it's only 12 copies. Like, don't think I threw a ream of paper at this girl, but I threw 12 sheets of paper at her face, which did not even give her a paper cut. She's fine. But like, it was like, more than anything, they just rained down upon her head as a reminder that, like, you have failed me as a student. You have done a terrible job at studenting today. And I was like, I was going to go over this with you. Go over it by yourself. Everybody sit there and you read silently to yourself and prepare to write this paper. And they're like, but what? And I'm like, hey, treat me like crap like this. This is what you get. Freshmen, they're not people. They're not people. Some of them might grow up to be people. Some of them might not. But you cannot treat them like people. And I know that sounds cruel. That sounds cruel because, I sound as bad, if not worse, than the upperclassmen who are like, hey, stupid freshman. Meh. Like, there are multiple freshmen in that class that I think would make a fine addition to my honors class someday. And I have told them as much. And I've told the entire class, I'm like, hey, work hard, be smart, and maybe you'll be in my honors class someday. Like, I wouldn't mind all of you being in there someday, but, like, grow the freak up first. And they are not grown up. And that's what they showed me today. And granted, like, okay, here's what else we're dealing with. Here's why everybody's squirrely and terrible. It is homecoming week, and so that means everybody's doing their silly dress-up days. Oh, it's dress-up days. Boo. Me and my boyfriend are going to dress up as boo-boo-boo. And so, like, it's basically an entire week of Halloween. You know how on Halloween the teacher wants to be like, hey, let's learn. And the students are like, I'm dressed like Batman. We will learn nothing today. Well, it's an entire freaking week of students being like, I'm wearing a grass skirt because today's luau day. Boo, boo, boo. And so they don't want to pay the freak attention. And excuse me. Oh, my God. And because they are not quite human, they will proceed to treat someone who is like, hey, how about I give you that free and fair public education that your parents' taxes paid for, and which, we have a vested interest in your generation not growing up to be stupid and in growing up to be the kind of people who can take that recycled paper booklet that you get every year or two that gives you all your voter information on, like, okay, we're voting for the district selectman and the county mine commissioner, and these are the people involved, and this is what their policy platform is, and this is we have a vested interest in people being able to pick up those recycled paper booklets, and boring though they may seem, and they not only seem boring, but they are freaking boring. We need generations of people to grow up smart enough to freaking know how to use those. And it doesn't matter whether you're going to be a mechanic, doesn't matter whether you're going to be a farmer, doesn't matter if you are never going to pick up a book for the rest of your life. If, like, after I get done making y'all read Romeo and Juliet, you're like, screw this, I hate Shakespeare, I never want to do Shakespeare again, okay, your life will be more sad for it, but you make your own choices. You do what you're going to do. But I want you to be able to read something complicated and boring so that someday when you're reading complicated and boring ballot propositions, you are able to make heads or tails of complicated, boring ballot propositions. You know, and be a freaking citizen of this nation, someone who is informed, someone who is intelligent, someone who is competent. That's all we freaking want out of the rising generation, out of every rising generation. And as a teacher, it is my job to make sure that that is what we get. And guess what? Some days the kids are like, freak that, I don't want that at all. And you just have to shake your head and be like, my God, there is no saving these children. And some days that's what it feels like. And that's what it felt like today. Just the worst. Just no thank you. Anyway. So yeah. Not a great time today. Not a great time at all. It's the first time that I've ever chucked anything at a student like that. But I wouldn't have chucked it if I had thought like, oh, this is going to land with a thud. Like, this is going to potentially hurt this child. If I had any thought in my mind that like this might hurt this child, I would not have thrown it. I need you to understand and believe that. But because I needed to get her attention as to how freaking terrible she was being and let her know like, hey, I see you and you are being trash right now. Your attitude is trash. Your behavior is trash. And I am going to throw papers at your face. Like, yeah. It's definitely one of the worst teaching moments I've ever had. I rarely lose it like that in front of a class. Like, you've heard the way that I am on these episodes. Like, I sound like a very mild-mannered, if not altogether boring individual. And that is what I bring to the table, ladies and gentlemans. Mild-mannered and, bit boring, if I'm being perfectly frank. I know who I am. It's fine. I don't mind. I am perfectly fine with the fact that things that I find fascinating, most people are like, yawn, snooze. Like, man, I was listening the other day. I was watching a C-SPAN book hour. Yeah, that's right. I was watching a C-SPAN book hour from like 2007. And a linguist was talking about interesting usages in the language and how usages change over time, and how like language is in a lot of ways very utilitarian. And he was talking about the term Caucasian, because Caucasian, it has a definite origin. It refers to peoples that come from the Caucasus Mountains, the Caucasus region of Eastern Europe. But like, people that we call Caucasian, by and large, are not Caucasian in the strictest sense of the term. It's like how we call when we're being extra politically correct, we tell people like, oh, you're African American, and they'd be like, my people are from Haiti or Jamaica or Trinidad and Tobago, or like places like that where they are not Africa. They're very specifically not Africa. Are they dark skinned? Yes. Are they African? No. Are they African American? No. They identify as, Haitian American, or, what have you. Trinidadian American, or etc. And so we can make these designations, and we can make them wildly wrong. It's also how, like, there's been a big discussion lately as to, how to refer to people, to the Spanish-speaking peoples of the world. Because if you say Hispanic, then you are just saying that these are people who speak Spanish, which would include, a lot of South America, but would not include Brazil, for example, where they speak Portuguese, And so, yeah, Portuguese people, by that definition, or Brazilian people who speak Portuguese, are not therefore Hispanic. Although people might be like, oh, yes, all these Hispanics from Brazil, because sometimes we don't think about the origins of the terms that we encounter. Anyway, so yeah, I was listening to a linguist give a talk about not only how the words that we use might have different origins than we think, but how the evolution of the usage of those terms can change the way that society operates around the concepts embodied within those terms. Ho, ho, ho. And that's a very tricky, sneaky bit of business. And quite frankly, well worth watching an hour lecture on that. Says me. And guess what? If you're the sort of person who is like, I don't want to watch an hour lecture on anything, thank you very much. Okay. I will watch all the hour-long lectures that you're not watching. More for me, thank you very much. You go to Disneyland, I will watch hour-long lectures on freaking, linguistics and whatnot. Because I know how to spend my time, ladies and gentlemen. I know how to spend my time. Anyway. So, yes, people. Bad teaching day today. Bad teaching day. It's just one of the worst. And don't feel good about it. Won't feel good about it. And continue to feel really bad for how bad I let it get. And that's the funny thing is, like, do you think that girl is going home and spending any amount of time being like, oh, man, English class got crazy today? Like, she might think about it for half a second, but ain't no freaking way. Like, I remember, okay. So we had this science teacher. He was the biology teacher at my high school. And God knows how this guy kept his job from year to year, because it was an open secret, and not even a secret, that the man was a functioning alcoholic, and not even that high functioning. And so, like, there were a lot of Mondays where he would come in and he would be wearing dark sunglasses, and he would have all the lights off, and he would be like, we are watching a movie. And the entire class would go, yay, a movie. and meanwhile, he is like, don't look at me, don't talk to me, don't ask me for anything, shut the frick up, watch the movie. That was his official stance on students that day. And, maybe he's wrong, maybe he's not. But, like, oh, hello, Cavey McCaverson. Anything cool down there? I don't see anything. I just see, like, sea lanterns and whatnot. Anyway, I've constantly wanted to break these up because they bother me. I see the two little blocks poking up, and they look like a whole lot of nonsense, quite frankly, and I don't think I should have to deal with that. Oh, it's getting dark, and the bad man's gonna come. Bad man comes when it gets dark. Anyway, and he throws pitchforks at me. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, so yeah, this old teacher of mine, So yeah, there were times when he would come in and he would just have dark sunglasses on, and we all knew it was like, oh my God, Mr. Malley is hung over. And we knew that that was a thing, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. And I guarantee administration knew it, but guess what? Teacher shortages are not a recent invention. You keep paying teachers the way you pay them, you keep treating them the way you treat them, you're going to have teacher shortages. Figure it the freak out, people. Anyway, so yeah, Mr. Malley, there was a thing that older students would always tell the younger students about Mr. Malley, and that was, okay, run, stupid. Oh, really? You're not going to run? You're just going to, wait, there. Why you no run? There we go. Jeez, Melise. Like, do you or do you not have a interest in your own self-preservation? So legend had it that Mr. Malley, this was the 1990s, the late 1990s, and the man dressed like it was the mid 1970s. A lot of polyester. And anyway, so legend had it that Mr. Malley could stand flat-footed on the floor and kick the top of the door frame, no problem, no questions asked. Just kick the top of the door frame because he was very flexible. Well, my friend Kirk hears this story from one of the upperclassmen, and he's like, this I've got to see. So we waited for a day when Mr. Malley was not hungover, and which, you know, there were plenty of days when he wasn't hungover. It's not like he was hungover every day, just a lot on Mondays, and sometimes in the middle of the week, but mostly on Mondays. Anyway, so yeah, Mr. Malley, we were begging and pleading, the whole class, like, please, Mr. Malley, you've done it for other classes. You're not going to show us. We want to see you kick the top of the door frame. And he's like, okay, fine. Kick the top of the door frame if y'all shut up and get some work done around here after I kick the top of this door frame. And we're like, oh, frick, we will get some work done. We swear to God, you kick the top of this door frame, all of our hopes and dreams just came true. We will abso-freaking-lutely 100% get some work done after that. I tell you what, Mr. Malley, there's no way we're not getting work done after we see you kick the top of the door frame. And anyway, so, oh God, here we go. He goes to kick the top of the door frame, and he slips. He slips, and he crashes to the floor, like, hard, right on his tailbone, like, just, you know, ass first, plants himself hard into the ground. And, like, he kicked really high. It's just when he swung his leg up, his other leg did not remain firmly planted on the ground, and he hit the door frame indeed, but then his ass hit the hard linoleum floors, yep. And then he started screaming at the entire class. He threatened my friend Kirk with detention, and Kirk was like, what did I do? I was just asking to see the thing that you are known for. You're known for two things: coming to class hungover and friggin' kicking the top of the door frame. These are your two claims to fame, Mr. Malley. Like, this is all anybody knows about you. Anyway, so that's the story about Mr. Malley. I can't kick the top of a door frame, people. I am much lamer than my high school biology teacher, so there you have it. Anyway, I gotta go to bed. My wife is already in bed, and here's the thing that happened yesterday, and part of the reason why I was predetermined to be pissy and in a general mood is because last night I went to bed at 11 o'clock. You see what time it is now? It's 11 o'clock. And I can go straight to bed after I get this video started uploading. I go straight to bed, no problems, is all good. And I can go straight to bed. I will not pass go. I will not collect $200 because, as previously mentioned, I'm a teacher. Anyway, so yeah. But last night I went to bed at 11 o'clock and could not fall asleep. Sunday night, teachers' most important night. You're doing all your planning, you're doing all your preparation, you're getting ready for the next day. And, you got to do all of this stuff. We have to have our lesson plans written out, posted online on freaking, Google. We got to have the entire week all planned out from start to finish. Every moment that we're in the classroom, we got to know exactly what we're doing the whole time, all the activities, all of the readings, all of the everything that we're doing. We got to have mapped out well in advance. It's a lot of freaking work. And yeah. So like Sunday, teacher's big day. Well, I got all that work done early in the day on Sunday so that I could get to bed at a decent hour, because I had been getting to bed like 2 in the morning on a Sunday, which is not a good time to go to bed. I don't know if you knew that. 2 in the morning, not a good time to go to bed when you got to get up at 6. 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock, they're only 4 hours apart. And if you're doing your math, which you should, because you had a math teacher once upon a time, make them proud. Show them that you know how many hours between 2 and 6. Oh, geez. Hey, you piece of crap. You didn't touch me. You didn't step to me. Think you can come at me like that? Anyway. Yeah. So, like, went to bed at 11. Could not fall asleep. Tossed and turned till from 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock I went and got my iPad so that I could start reading my book, because I'm reading Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence, because those are the kind of books I read. Well, not necessarily D.H. Lawrence, but older, established, classic type literature, the kind of stuff that I read. I have a whole reading list that I'm doing. Anyway, regardless, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah, this is what I've been waiting on, one of these fools. Oh, it's not enchanted at all. That's ridiculous. And he didn't give me any of it. Well, the filth with you, weird jobby. Anyway, regardless, yeah, so I read D.H. Lawrence, very exciting. Mrs. Morrill is very, very dissatisfied in her marriage, and even seemed to be having trouble loving her own children, children that remind her of how unhappy she is in life and how nothing turned out the way that she had hoped. Yeah. Setting things up for a good Kate Chopin type twist. Is she going to walk out into the freaking ocean and drown herself at the end of the book? I don't know. That's how, that Kate Chopin book. What's the name of that book? I can picture the cover. I just can't think of the name of the book. Anyway, great Kate Chopin book. Highly recommended. It's the one. It's the one that most people recommend. If they recommend that you read any Kate Chopin, that's that one. Anyway, regardless. So I don't know which direction this story is going to go. I've never read Sons and Lovers before. Oh, hello. But, reading the woes of a woman. We're right in the woes part of it, where she's very unhappy with her marriage. She's just given birth to her third child, and her husband locked her outside in the cold when he came home drunk, and she starts giving him crap about it. And like, it's just bad communication in a marriage, because she's calling him a liar, because she's like, hey, you've been spending all our money going out and drinking. But really, he went out with his friend who was like bowling for cash, and like his friend like hustled some people, got some straight up cash, and they went drinking out with that money. And so that's why he comes home and he's like, didn't cost me anything to go drinking tonight. And she's like, you freaking liar. It always costs money to go out drinking. You're not going to go drinking with money. How dare you lie to my face? Come home slobbering drunk. Anyway, this is what I'm reading while I'm trying to put myself to sleep. And I read for a solid hour and still did not fall asleep. And, so around 2 a.m, put the book down and just, tried my best. And sometime between 2 and 3, fell asleep and got not nearly enough sleep, which is why I was probably just a little predestined to be cranky and to be less forgiving of a freshman class who's going to be all squirrely. And so, like, everything compounds. Normally, I'm that teacher who is like, look, I will tell you, if I forget my medication, I am much more likely to yell at this entire class for literally no reason. Like, I have to stay medicated in order for me to be even a remotely reasonable teacher. And I recognize that, and I own that. Like, and I'm not going to put it on my students to be like, why is my teacher yelling at me? It's because he's off his meds. Now, you're the reason that he needs his meds, but when he's not on his meds, things get ugly. Like, let's just own up to it. Anyway, so normally I'm very upfront with my students about these sorts of things, but yeah, it's just, and when I haven't had enough sleep, I will tell them straight up, just be like, hey, I am much more likely to yell at you today because of reasons that you have nothing to do with. Try to be honest with people. I find that they respond to it because, we lived through Trump, but people still respect honesty. They do. You give people honesty, they respond to it in a positive way. Anyway, so, ladies and gentlemen, let me kill one last zombie. Where is he? Where is he? Zombie, where is he? Come on, there he is. Wish he was wearing some sort of armor, but whatever. Okay, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Go to sleep. We are awoken. It is day, and we save and quit to the title. Well, hey, this has been Islandcraft with Rem Pemberton of the Clemson Pembertons. I'm Rem Pemberton. I'm your host. You know this. We go back, we regress back into the infinite regression as we close, as always. Hey, anyway, don't be a real jerk face to your teacher. Maybe they won't throw 12 papers in your face. And maybe don't, go to bed at a craptacular hour. I'm going to go straight to bed after this. So trust that, know that. Anyway, people, I want to do more game reviews. I just didn't have it today. That's what tomorrow is for. We'll do more game reviews tomorrow. Anyway, that's it for this one, people. We will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.